So the book that we will be discussing today will be Talking to Strangers, What We Should Know About People We Don't Know, written by quite popular Malcolm Gladwell. And this book I found very interesting. So one of the better books I read this year. I don't know what is your impression, uh, Z, because
Mhm.
you also read this book.
Okay. So initially, I thought maybe because of the previous book discussions you have about
Hmm.
social skills, I thought it was about that
Hmm.
because it has talking to strangers, right? And
Hmm.
then I found out that it wasn't about social skills. You know, yeah. So
Yes,
so
yes. So
yeah,
the name, the title of the book is a little confusing because I also thought this will be about something else. But
yeah.
at the end, I mean, the content of the book was super interesting because it shows how the world operates and how people operate. So this is
Hmm.
knowledge I have never gained from any other sources, and it describes a lot of things that going on in the world,
Hmm.
especially when we are interacting with strangers. So
Hmm.
those rules that the author provided, I found very novel. And actually, I've had few times when I thought differently before reading the book, and now I see something in a new light, in a new, with this new, with new eyes. So we will today see what this new perspective that was provided in this book. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book in order to understand what happened in certain cases that happens in America. So as you most of you know that there is a lot of problems that in the US they have with police and with black people, that there are a lot of shootings, etc. So they are trying to understand why this happens and how to fix this. And one of the main examples that the author used to explain everything in this book is Sandra Bland case. So Sandra Bland was a black woman in America that was stopped by the police officer in Texas. And I will run this video, and you will tell me what you think about this. And then over the time, over the course of this meeting, we will discuss why this happens and what possibly could be done in order to alter the outcome of this situation. So I will start this. So this is her car, and this is the video captured from the police car. And is the audio okay? Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Well, next time I'm told the reason for your stop is you failed to signal your lane change. You got your driver's license insurance with you? Give me a few minutes, all right? You okay? I'm waiting on you. This is your job. I'm waiting on you. What do you want me? Oh, you seem very irritated. I am. I really am. Well, I'm getting typical. I was getting out of your way. You were speeding up, tailing me. So I move over and you stop me. So yeah, I am a little irritated, but that doesn't stop you from giving me a ticket. So. Oh,
Yes, so the woman in the car got very irritated.
I told you. So now I'm done yet. Okay. You mind putting out your cigarette, please? Don't mind. I'm in my car. Why not put out my cigarette? Well, you can step on out now. I don't have to step out of my car. Step out of the car. But step out of the car. No, you don't have the right. Step out of the car. You do not have the right to do that. I do have the right. Now step out or I will remove you. I refuse to talk to you other than to identify myself. Step out or I will remove you. I'm getting removed for a failure. Step out or I will remove you. I'm giving you a lawful order. Get out of the car now or I'm going to remove you. And I'm calling my. I'm going to yank you out of here. Okay, you going to yank me out of my car? Get out. All right. 25. Let's do this. Yeah, we're going to. Yeah. Don't touch me. Get out of the car. Don't touch me. I'm not under arrest. You don't have the right to say. You are under arrest. I'm under arrest for what? 25. For what? 7 County FM 1098. Just for what? 290. Send me another unit. Get out of the car. Another unit. That's 1098. Get out of the car now. Why am I being apprehended? You trying to give me a ticket? I said get out of the car. Why am I being apprehended? I'm giving you a lawful order. I'm gonna drag you out of here. So you threatening to drag me out of my own car? Hold on. And then I will light you up. Get out. Wow. Now. Wow. Get out of the car. For a failure to signal. You're doing all of this for Get over there. Right, yeah. Yeah, let's take this to court. Let's do Go ahead. For a failure to signal. Yep, for a failure to signal. Get off the phone. My stool. Get off the phone. I'm on the phone. I have a right to Put your phone down. Property. Put your phone down. Sir? Put your phone down. Right.
And this quarrel goes on and on. I will not take this forward.
Getting the warning for what? Stay right here. For what? You just pointed me over there. I said stay right here. Right. Let me. Oh, I put on my light down. Time for a signal. You I got her control. She's in handcuffs. What a. What up? You about to break my wrist. Stop moving. I'm standing still. You stay right here. Me, goddammit. Stay right there. Don't touch me. For a traffic signal. Come right over here. This right here says a warning. You started creating the problems. You asked me what was wrong. I'm trying to tell you. Person that's illegal. Do it feel like I got anything on me? This a maxi dress. Move your glasses. This a maxi dress. Come on over here. Have on me. Real good, don't it? A female for traffic. I got it. For traffic. I know they make you feel good.
Yes, and like this goes this way. So I think I show this situation. So what do you think about this? Why this happened? Do you have any impression after this?
Now, at the first glance, it seemed like the policeman was irritated of disrespect that the woman showed, but I don't think that there was something illegal. And I thought also that she was found dead in the cell. Do you know what happened?
Yes, she committed suicide 3 days later.
Yeah, wow. No, the escalation, if we're talking about conversation, the escalation was because, not on the first glance, that the cop didn't like that she didn't show any authority and politeness and obedience. This is on the first glance.
Yes, any of you have other impressions? Yes, so this was quite a loud case 10 years ago because this happened in 2015. So yes, she was arrested, as you can see in this video, then went to jail, and she committed suicide 3 days later. As a result, yes, she was found dead. This police officer was fired from his work. And yes, I will come back to this case later at the end of the meeting when I will describe all of the stuff that went over this book that try to explain what happens, because on the first glance we can only evaluate what the police officer did and the woman did, and evaluate it on the very individual manner, but there is a lot of other stuff that is going on, and makes it easier to understand what's going on. So what this book discusses are three topics actually that happens when we are interacting with strangers, and this is default to truth theory, illusion of transparency, and not understanding coupling. So all of those stuff, all of us discover how we behave when in relationship with strangers, and all to explain a lot of stuff that is going on. And in this book, there were a lot of stories about very controversial and violent stuff. So, for example, uh, pedophilia was discussed, issue of rapes, big financial crimes, wars, etc. And spies, and this all of those cases could give some light to those topics, and the author quite well describes this in stories. So I will tell some of those stories, but obviously not in a super direct way, because we don't have time in 1 hour to talk about the whole content of the book, but the most interesting cases. So the first thing that the author describes is default to truth theory. So we as people, when we are interacting with strangers, we assume that other people are good and honest. And there needs to be a lot of evidence that we need to see to change our mind. Um, so by default, when we meet strangers, we believe them. And there needs to be something really big, huge evidence that somebody is against us in order to change this belief. And there were many stories in the book that provides evidence to this default to truth theory. That talking in a more direct way is that we are much better than chance at correctly identifying people who are telling the truth, but we are much worse than chance at correctly identifying the students who are lying. So we have the default to truth. We believe people until there is something wrong, very wrong, that has and forces us to change our mind. The first story that was told was about the Cuban spies in CIA. So CIA in America was like totally infiltrated by Cuban spies, and Cuba knows like everything about what's going on in CIA. And this is because it's quite easy to be spy. It's very difficult for people to believe that some of their colleagues in CIA or somewhere else is spying. Um, and there was a story of the Queen of Cuba. So there was an American, Anna Montes, that was working like more than 10 years in CIA, and she was providing all of the information to Fidel Castro and Cuban country about all of the actions. And she arranged a very very there was the issue that on Florida there was the organization that was setting flights to Cuba. They were throwing some leaflets, etc., to Cuba, and Cuba was very angry at this situation. So they wanted to shoot out those aircrafts, but obviously they couldn't do it like normally because this would be a huge problem with US. So they arranged the situation that they invited one of the general from United States to Cuba, and one day before they shoot down one of the aircraft, they give a warning to this general that they don't want this. They ask the question to the general what would happen if they would shoot down those aircrafts, and the day later they shoot down the aircraft, and CIA and all of those officers were in the troubles because they got the warning. They got the warning 1 day before, so they knew that this could happen. So they couldn't normally act, and this went to media. They had to explain themselves, etc. And this was possible because there was a spy in CIA that arranged this. And she was like working. She was called even a Queen of Cuba because most of the people thought that she's so professional and great, but in reality she was a spy since the beginning. And they even have some kind of hints that she was a spy, but those evidences were so small that they couldn't believe that this could be the case. So there was even in this book described one interview between Eva Montes, the Queen of Cuba, and the intelligence officer that was evaluating her and checking if she can be involved somehow with Cuba. And during this interview, she shown signs of nervousness, etc., under some questions, but this officer couldn't believe that this is the case. I mean, couldn't believe that was so believing that she was a valid person, that she is not a spy, that he missed those hints. And only few years later, when there was like hardcore evidence, they find like some signals on the microwaves, etc. Then only all of those pieces were matched. And this story shows that it's very difficult to believe that some people can be lying, even if there are like very clear evidences. We as a people are very weak at finding people that are lying. We don't. We have this default to truth tendency. Most of the people have the default to truth tendency, and just we don't believe that somebody can be lying. We need to have a lot of proof. And the same story was with Neville Chamberlain, that he met with Hitler. And so it was also described in this book. So Neville Chamberlain was a prime minister of England, and he went 3 times to Germany to talk with Hitler, to get to know him. As it turns out, meeting in person with somebody can more mislead us than not knowing at all that person. So it's even mentioned in this book that people who didn't know Hitler knew him better than people who met Hitler, because um, meeting Hitler in person was so confusing to them that so they started to believe that Hitler absolutely don't want to start a world war. And people who never met him, like Winston Churchill, never got deluded. It's also described. If you have some comments to this, then you can obviously jump in. Yeah, it's obviously in different way to talk about the topic online than offline. But if you have something interesting to say, then obviously jump in. There was also the experiment run on the cases they found in New York district. So they were checking if judges made correct decision about citizens in a court, and there was some AI construction that also makes some judgments, and it turned out that AI made better judgments than judges. So AI was better at finding very hardcore cases of criminals that could, if they are not arrested during the process, they could commit some crimes. So AI was much better at detecting people who could commit another crimes when they are free, and judges were much worse, even if AI had much less information than judges, because judges made their decision not only about the past of the criminal, but also they have this additional information with the face-to-face interaction with the person. So they saw the faces of the criminal, etc. They talked with them, and actually, this information is more misleading than not having this information. So by looking and talking with each other, with another person, we get more deceived than we get the correct information. So this is one of the more important things that I learned in this book, that body language of other person doesn't really provide us 100% information. So sometimes it's better to evaluate somebody not knowing, not having this information, not even meeting with such a stranger, because we don't know them. These are strangers. It's completely something different when we know somebody very well, but if we don't know that person, then we cannot evaluate based on their body language. And we have this tendency, this default to truth. So tend to believe other people. Mm. Another case was Jerry Sandusky case. So it was also another very famous case in US, but obviously in Europe and other parts of the world this is not known. But this was about pedophilia. So in the Pennsylvania State University there was Jerry Sandusky working for many years, and he was committing. He was a pedophile, but he acted in a very sophisticated way, so it was very difficult to find clear evidence that he was a pedophile, because with children that he abused, it was always the problem, because they sometimes tell that they were abused, sometimes they change their mind and they say that they were not abused. And this is because he treated them a little like a father, but additionally, yes, he made sexual assaults. So it's very difficult to evaluate if somebody was a pedophile or did some sexual assaults based on the interrogation of people who were abused, because of the complication, the psychical complications. But there was one case when one person, it was probably here. I don't remember the name of this person. Mike McQuarrie. Yes, said he walked on Sandusky, anally raping 10-year-old boy. So yes, so in one day he saw it, but he was not 100% sure this happened, and because he was like not 100% happened, then he was like consulting it with his family, with some other people, what to do. Then they reported to higher level, higher hierarchy in this Pennsylvania State University to do something like that, to act something, to fire him or like involve police, etc. But nothing happened. So this happened in 2003, and 10 years nothing happened. So there was actually no no intervention whatsoever, and Jerry Sandusky still committed crimes on another children, and only after 10 years there was it blew up, and he finally got accused, and also other people in the hierarchy, his bosses, also got accused and went to jail. In this case, tells a lot of things about this default to truth theory. So it just claims that it's super difficult to people who not very well know another person, like the pedophile, to believe that he was really a pedophile. So they need to one evidence, another evidence, super strong evidence that something wrong happened, because otherwise they just couldn't believe that something wrong happened. There was also another case, another pedophile described that was sexually assaulting a woman from the U.S. gymnastics group, and he did it. He made these sexual assaults in the presence of parents of this woman. So he touched them in the places, in the erogenic places, and he do it during the presence of their parents in the same place, and he do it for many years. And even if those girls, those women were reporting this, like talking to their parents, they default to truth. So they believe that this professional doctor was a professional, so he did everything what is necessary to be done, and they couldn't believe their daughters that he could sexually assault them. So The conclusion of this is that it's super difficult to believe that stranger can be lying or can be doing something wrong. There was also another case about Bernard Madoff. So he created Ponzi schema. You know what is Ponzi scheme, I guess. So this is like the fake financial pyramid, and he built it for many years, and nobody was able to fund it because there were a lot of red flags, yellow flags about what he was doing. So when people were investigating his case, there was something wrong with this. And this was evident, but people couldn't believe that if other people believe in an institution don't do anything, so they believe that this guy is a professional and he knows what to do. It turned out that he is a total scam and fraud, and he created the biggest Ponzi scam in history. And once again, this was because of the default to truth. So people believed him uh, by default, and there was no clear evidence that something is wrong. So everybody believed him until everything collapsed. Mm. So that's about default to truth uh, theory. Do you have some kind of mm, comments about this from your personal story that you believed somebody or are aware of something like that there were some yellow flags from the person, but you couldn't find out that something is wrong.
It seems like that story with Putin and Trump, right? But I think that it works in both ways because sometimes, yeah, the person can persuade you that there's something in some belief, but sometimes, like when you look at the person, like you capture
Mhm.
more understanding of the person. Sometimes I think it works in both ways, and it's useful to talk like
Mhm.
with people. Mhm.
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 So you think that talking with people can improve our understanding of other people?
Yeah, like because on the paper it might no, yeah, you see like there is a difference on paper and how it's in reality. But I think that sometimes like it works in both. Sometimes another person can persuade you in false information like this, like the stories. But sometimes you can get more clarity on something and understand situation more. So
Mhm.
like I think it's 50-50.
50-50. Mhm.
Mhm.
In the second case, when we will be talking about transparency, this is more elaborated about like why we get misleading by reading body
Okay,
language.
it's yeah, it's like you read the CV and you have an impression this person like is super professional, and then you get to know the person. You ask additional question, you understand that like CV was like it looked very good, but like the person like is not as such good as it was described. This is what I meant.
Okay, by talking with him but about the
Yeah,
subject matter.
yeah.
There was also some kind of cases mentioned that also the job interview, but for some musical instrument playing. So the better people were hired for this job when they didn't see the person. So they only heard what is played by this instrument, but they didn't see appearance of this person, and
Yeah, I
based
agree.
they
Mhm.
made better decisions. Who was better? So the appearance misled them.
Agree. Yeah, it might be the case. Yeah, as well. Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
like in the case of the interview, sometimes not seeing the person, but by talking to them could reveal more information. I mean, could filter out those type of information that would mislead us.
So I don't disagree that sometimes it's beneficial not to talk, but I am saying that it's also sometimes it's beneficial to talk. Because in my example, when you talk to a person that you would like to hire, sometimes the playing a musical instrument is a different story, right? This is exactly how you evaluate the skills, like by your hear. Of course, the look might be, one person would like the person, and there are a lot of inputs that you need to take into account. At sometimes, for example, I don't know, hiring a surgeon or something, on the paper it's one thing, but when you look what the person that does or talk and ask the question, medical questions, it's a medical question, you can understand that the person doesn't know what was described in the paper or something.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, so this is something that it can be very misleading. So what he's talking about that when we don't know person, the author, that we can get very, very confused by what is visible, but that's the way how it works. So do you have something else, or we can go forward with the
Yeah,
illusion of
I don't have any other comments. Maybe somebody else.
No, I don't see. I don't see. So the second thing that was described in this book that makes our meeting with strangers more complicated than it seems is this illusion of transparency. So what is transparency? Transparency is the idea that people's behavior and them demeanor, the way they represent themselves on the outside, provides an authentic and reliable window into the way they feel on the inside. It is the second of the crucial tools we use to make sense of strangers. When we don't know someone, or we can't communicate with them, or don't have time to understand them properly, we believe we can make sense of them through their behavior and demeanor, so by their look and their body language. And he claims that this is the illusion. So by observing other people, we frequently don't know. We cannot be sure what other person is like. And he starts this with the Friends example. So Friends is this TV series. I can show you. So in France, we see the example of super clear transparency. So all of those actors, his mimics and body language is super transparent. So we know what they feel when they are talking. So by seeing their mimics and they
You had sex with another woman. Oh my God. Oh,
yes, so by their body language we know what they feel. Yes. And in real life, people don't have this super clear mimics and body language that we can immediately understand. So it's very rare that people behave like actors in this TV series. And because of those movies, TV series, we have this illusion of transparency. So we think that by observing other people, we can get to know them. But in real life, people sometimes mismatch. So sometimes they can behave from their body language in a way that is totally opposite to what they feel. So there are people who can look angry, but they are internally happy, or vice versa. So there are many of such people, and this can lead to a lot of mistakes and a lot of tragedies. So one example mentioned in this book was with Patrick Day Walker. So this guy was trying to shoot his girlfriend, but he failed because the weapon got broken. So he tried to shoot her, but the weapon hung. So she would have killed her, but because of the issue with the weapon, he wouldn't do it. So he went to the prosecution and judge by talking with him and his super calm demeanor and behavior. decided that he will never do this again. So he let him free. And 2 months later, he shot his girlfriend. So he committed this crime. So he should never leave the jail. So he should end with jail, but because of his very calm appearance and the way how he talk with the judge, mislead the judge, and he made incorrect decision. And also, this is the case with a lot of people who have psychic problems. So people with those kind of problems, they can behave totally different if they don't take pills. So if they take pills, they behave normally, but if they stop taking pills, they go crazy. So if judges see them when they take pills, they can misread them and they evaluate that they behave this way normally. But then those people, for example, stop taking pills and they go crazy and they commit crimes. So that's also one of the illusions that happen when the judges see strangers and take way too much the importance of the interactions with them rather than based on the history of that person. So what he did in the past, what was the actions they did, etc., which should be which reveal the truth about the person. There was also in this book mentioned Amanda Knox case. So this is like the totally opposite and very famous situation that happens 20 years ago or something like that. So she and her, I will open Wikipedia because this will be easier. And in English, obviously. So Amanda Knox was a friend of Meredith Kercher, and Meredith Kercher was murdered in 2007, and it was done by some guy that was called Rudy Guede. But there was the situation that they participated in some kind of sexual orgies. I won't go into details, but there were 4 people involved, and one of them was Amanda Knox, and she was sentenced because they thought that she was also participating in murdering. But after 8 years, they found evidence that she was innocent. But the interesting thing is why people thought that she is guilty, and this was because she behaved in a very weird way. She mm, she she, mm, she behaved in a mismatched way. So typically people when they imagine what happens when their friend was murdered, they would think that that person will be sad, they will behave in a sad way. So they have some kind of imagination what that person would do. And Amanda Knox is a person that is mismatched. So she behaves in a different way. And when other people was seeing her, so for example, it was like kissing her boyfriend, etc., or for example, buying some clothes for herself, uh, people have the impression that she is not sad about death of her friend, and she behaved in a very suspicious manner. And I will close this one. Close this one. Here is like one of the interview that shows this one quirky behavior of her.
Back to the prosecutor who put you away, asking questions. As someone who is living with the consequences of being the girl accused of murder, the stigma of that, trying to make sense of that in my own life, the first question I was asking myself was why? Why is this my life? And I couldn't think of anyone better to ask that than the man who made this my life. Your life. And so I originally reached out to him, and I'll be honest, like I reached out to him hoping that if I could show him who I really was, he would recognize that I was not the person that he thought he was prosecuting, that he was wrong, and that he would apologize to me, and that he would get on the rooftops and proclaim my innocence, and my life would be so much better. And you're rushing to the end. Let me like slow play.
Yes, so actually you see here like this kind of queer behavior.
Wojtek, I can't imagine that they prosecuted her without any evidence. Like, because like the behavior doesn't give you anything, and no judge would convince her based on just behavior.
No, people put a lot of attention to it, and this was actually the case here.
So
Obviously,
she was convinced that based on behavior without no
yes,
evidence?
yes, because people just believe that something is suspicious about her. And there was no clear evidence that she did it, but based on this behavior, people were very prone to this. Obviously, there was also this case was specific because young woman was killed, murdered, and this case are always very popular. Media talk about this constantly, so all of those police, etc., people who are investigating are under huge pressure, and all of this matters. So if the public see all of those not evidences, but the behavior of this woman, they already start to they gave sentence, they put pressure on those people. So there were a lot of this kind of things. I don't want to go in too much into details because I also know this case only from the book, not didn't make that huge investigation. Yes, so if you are interested, you can watch videos about it because it was very known case and there are a lot of documents on the web. Mm. So this was one case when her behavior went her into the troubles. So he behaved in a mismatched way. So people treated her that there is something suspicious about her, even if she was innocent. And in the case of Bernard Madoff, this was like the flip side. So he was making financial crimes, but he behaved in a so calm manner that people just believe he is a trustworthy person. So I can like run part of the interview with this person.
So, yeah, people lie.
Yeah, so this was done before he was getting into troubles.
You know, in today's regulatory environment, it's virtually impossible to violate rules when this is something that the public really doesn't understand. And if you read things in the newspaper and you see somebody, violate a rule, you say, well, they're always doing this. But it's impossible for you to for a violation to go undetected. Certainly not for a considerable period of time. And when you consider the volumes of trading, the trillions of dollars of trading that go on. Our firm, for example, alone, we trade in excess of.
Yes, so he sounded very trustworthy, and actually, what he was selling is exactly what he was doing. So he said that some kind of crime is not possible, but he was actually doing this 15 years. So he was like doing exactly what he says that is impossible. But because he was sound trustworthy and the way he behaved, people believed him. There was one person that didn't believe him, and in this book, the author calls those people who don't believe other people, so they are not prone to this default to prove tendency that we all as humans have. They call those people holy fools, so they just don't believe anybody in anything. They need evidences. They think that spies are everywhere, etc. But those people are rare, and those people are kind of weird because uh, it's very difficult to live when we don't believe strangers that they have good intentions. If we see everybody else as strangers, it's very difficult to live normally. Yes. So that's about the transparency. this transparency was very popular for many years, so people really believe that there are certain emotions that if we see the face, we can recognize what kind of emotions person have. So there was this myth that this is something universal and evolutional. So uh, all people in all the world, when they see somebody with happy or sad or angry faces, then they can correctly detect that that person is happy, sad, or angry. But in last years it proved that this is not that easy. So there were um, people. Some people went to some islands west, east to Papua New Guinea island, Guinea Island, to check, and they show the photos of people who are have these angry faces, happy faces, etc. And they ask people what those faces show, and those people couldn't really typically tell. They couldn't detect the emotions of the person in the photo. So it was the proof that the coupling between emotions and what we see on the faces is a little more cultural than evolutional. And this proof that transparency is not something that we need to believe. So sometimes just people by their body language and demeanor don't show anything. Don't you shouldn't evaluate them based on this. Something about this you have to something interesting to say about this?
You know, I would say that the majority people that will be truth, but like there are of course like liars, and they just know how to use the body language and how to because it works because normally what we express like this is like true, and they based on this fact they know that, so that's why they use these like techniques, you know, like to smile, to stay calm, because this is what usually it means. So, but yeah, people lie. So I just would say that the same, that the majority people are good, but like there is some percent that like use that. Mhm.
Yes, I mean, this is not only about lies, but generally by reading others, we can incorrectly, some strangers, we can't correctly say what is their internal state. Somebody can look, he's angry or sad, but he can be happy actually. But we have.
Yeah, and also other side also true. If the person is angry, sometimes not sometimes, like in the majority of cases, he's angry, right? But there are some cases when it's not true. But there are also a lot of cases when it's also true. But you're right that we shouldn't take it like 100%, but I would say like 60-70%, like it would be true, no?
Yes, especially when like we talk about police judges that they shouldn't take that much attention to these details because they can totally mislead them and make some really wrong decisions and mistakes.
Yeah, and like when we see that the person is smiling, right, on the picture, that there are two options. Person is happy and person is just faking. But also there is option the person is also happy. So it's also could be true.
Yes, yes. So that's about transparency. Uh, Somebody else want to say something?
Well, so I have read this book more or less until this part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the content itself is interesting, but what I struggle is with how I can apply it to my life, you know? Because there is this part where the author talks about how like I can't exactly remember how he phrased it, but something along the lines of it only applies for people who are mismatched. And that is usually only a very, very small fraction of the population. So, which means that we will likely not encounter um, such situations or such strangers in our lifetimes unless we are working for the CIA, or we find ourselves being in cases like, I guess, Amanda Knox, or, it's just very unlikely, or at least not in my life. So I find it very difficult to apply it. So the book in general is for me, yeah, it was very good information, and it was a glimpse into very specific situations that I would not encounter,
Mhm.
but yet very difficult for me to apply to my life.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
say
I
it's
yeah, sorry.
continue. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, no, but I didn't get what you said. Sorry, because
Yeah, I wanted to say that it could be in sales. When some person tries to sell you something and you understand that this is not good, but the person is super nice, is super good. Like, or when sometimes you ask about the product that you wanted to buy,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
like on the paper it doesn't look good, but the person, like persuades you like that this is okay, or like hiring someone also like maybe here you just like need to be aware
mm,
that the person can
yeah,
lie, and that's what the voice that I mentioned before.
yeah, I agree with you on this, right? However, like someone like Bernie Madoff, I actually was following his case quite a bit when it first came out. So in his case, right, most people couldn't tell, right?
Mhm.
So what you're referring to in terms of someone being able to sell something in which there are no genuine claims, right? Most of us can see through that. So okay, because most of us can see through that, and this book doesn't exactly talk about those cases, then for us, uh, it um, it doesn't really help much. I mean, it would help us a lot if we could guard ourselves against someone like Bernie Madoff. But because someone like Bernie Madoff, excuse me, is only like one in a billion, right? So when the author uses a case which is one in a billion, the chances of us encountering such a person is not very high. But but if but the but a very diluted version of Bernie Madoff as a salesperson, sure, we encounter them and we are able to detect them.
Mhm.
I don't know what if I make sense like what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean this is the one side of the equation, but there is also the another side of the equation that you can maybe find beneficial
Mm,
because other people also read you, and if you have some kind of mismatched type of behavior or body language, and people incorrectly read how you feel or behave, this can lead to some kind of issues. So for me, this is
mm,
interesting that sometimes, in my case, sometimes people misread me, so they think that
mm,
I'm angry, for example, when I am not angry, or I am
mhm,
sad when I am not sad, and I could, based on this knowledge, correct my way of behaving to be more matched with the standard way of how people think, people behave when they feel something. So kind of go a little more into direction of this friends type of presence. I mean, demeanor that correctly show people what I feel. And obviously, this is more important when we are talking about police. So when police are checking us, etc., then we should behave like we are honest, etc., and not behave in a way that can get us into troubles. So we will go back to her, but she is the example
mhm,
how person shouldn't behave if how person shouldn't behave to not get into troubles with the police. So obviously the police
mhm,
officer made a lot of mistakes, and we will go to this. We'll go back to this.
mhm,
But if she would behave a little differently, then this also wouldn't happen. So yes.
mhm,
So like from my perspective, this is something that I could personally apply. So to behave in a more matched way. So understand that
mhm,
sometimes people incorrectly read what my intentions and my feelings, because
mhm,
a
mhm,
little mismatch from the cultural type of understanding how people behave.
mhm.
Yeah. Yes, so before I will go to the couplings thing, which is one of the most important, I mean, the most interesting parts of this book, actually, the coupling. I will go through two chapters in this book that were a little like side notes, so they are a little off the normal course of this book, but they are also interesting. So one side note is about effects of alcohol, what alcohol do to us, and how it change our behavior. So here the main story was about rapes that happens frequently. Men and women drink alcohol and they behave differently, and very frequently woman lost her consciousness. She has blackout or just don't remember what happens, and the man incorrectly reads her behavior like agreement to everything, and they have sex, which actually the woman treat as a rape later. And this was like the whole topic of this chapter, how this happens and why this happens. And like the most interesting thing was what actually alcohol do to us. Um, and a lot of mm, typically this inhibition. Yes, people think by default that what drinking alcohol causes is this disinhibition. So people do what they wouldn't normally do because they lost this social norms feeling, and they do what they want. But based on evidences and or people who are checking this, is that alcohol not leads to disinhibition, but it rather leads to myopia. Myopia is the metaphor. So myopia is this issue with eyes that you cannot see for larger distances. So people who drink alcohol just makes more important everything that is close to them is more important for them, and everything that is further away from them mentally or visually is like irrelevant. So this alcohol leads to myopia. Let me write this. Alcohol principal effect is to narrow our emotional and mental fields of vision. It creates a state of shortedness, which superficially understood immediate aspects of experience have a disproportionate influence on behavior and emotion. So if the person, for example, and this is a lot of bound to environment. So if the crazy things happens in the environment, so for example in the nightclub, then a person who is under alcohol see this, and this is much higher significance, and this can lead to a lot of undesired behavior. And this is something that happens in Western culture a lot, that people and students drink a lot of alcohol. But as a comparison, people in South Africa, in all of those tribes, drink a lot of alcohol. They are like almost constantly drunk during weekends. And the thing is that there, even if people drink this alcohol, there is no crimes, no issues whatsoever, because those drinking is wrapped into some kind of social context. So so these gatherings when people are drinking alcohol is very set up. Is arranged in a way that people never go into trouble. So they never do things that could lead to crimes, etc. There is nothing like that. But because in Western societies, or Eastern societies actually, uh, people drink alcohol in environments and context that doesn't restricts us. This causes do a lot of issues with rape also. So that was the one side note that was explained in this book. that alcohol distorts our understanding of strangers greatly, can distort. And other thing was about torture. So it was the example of KSM case. KSM was the person who mm, mm, uh, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. So this person was a very important person, like the chef of World Trade Center attacks in September 11, and he was captured in 2003. And CIA and all of those people there wanted him to reveal all of the truth, but obviously he didn't want to tell. So they used tortures, all different type of tortures to force him to talk. And the biggest lesson I won't go into detail is that torture doesn't work. Doesn't work in this way that they can force person to talk, but tortures can alter the brain of the person that is tortured. So it can create memories in the tortured person of the things that never happened, for example, or they can totally distort the memory of the tortured person because it affects amygdala, etc. So tortures is not a way to get the truth from the tortured person. It can lead to false information. Long-term structural remodeling of the brain systems that support the very functions of the interrogator wishes to have access to. So tortures doesn't lead to getting the truth information. It can lead to getting the information that the person that is doing the tortures want, but not the truth. And in the end, this guy finally told that he have like a lot of mm, plans to have a lot of terrorist attacks in all over the place, killing all of presidents, etc. But probably a lot of stuff he told it was delusional. So this is something that he didn't really plan to do. There was also interesting experiment that was run on the officers of the CIA or people who were participating there, because in US some people, some soldiers are intentionally tortured as a training, so if they will go to slavery by some other country, they will know how to behave and to not to reveal the truth. So a lot of soldiers and officers are tortured, and during the check, one guy checked that those people who were tortured, those soldiers who were tortured, couldn't say what person tortured him. So they lost this kind of memory. So there was this even fun experiment that there were people in the line, several people in the line, and those 44 soldiers had to tell which guy in the slide tortured them, and 20 of them select the incorrect person that was on some kind of vacation. So they were like totally wrong about who was making those waterboarding and other type of tortures. So that's another interesting thing about the effects of using tortures. But let me go to coupling. If you don't have any comments about the previous two cases about alcohol and tortures. So coupling is one of the most important thing also in order to understand how strangers behave. So coupling, I mean, there is a lot of suicide, but this is like the general pattern that the behavior of the stranger is really coupled to the particular concept. So the coupling is the idea that behaviors are linked to a very specific circumstances and conditions. And it was explained by two examples of crimes and examples of suicides. So one case was about Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath was a poet, and she committed suicide. She committed suicide by putting her head into the oven, and in that time, in 60s, 1960s, those oven were using specific type of gas that have carbon monoxide that was obviously killing people. So he used this opportunity to kill herself this way. And all of people who knew her were sure that at some point she will commit suicide because she was very depressed person. She was talking a lot of about doing suicides, etc., commit suicide. But the author of the book claims that if this particular method of committing suicide was not available to Sylvia Plath at this period of time, then she wouldn't commit suicide. And so she claimed that if there is lack of certain context and opportunities, then the person won't do something. So normally you would think that when the person want to commit suicide, he will do it this way or another way. So this way won't work, then he will do it another way or another way or another way. But in reality, most of the people who commit suicide will be able to do it one way, but if this way is removed, then they won't do it in a different way. So, for example, if they can't, if killing by taking pills don't work, they won't shoot themselves. So commit suicide by shooting themselves. And this is actually proved by data. So in Great Britain, most ovens since 1920 to 1960 times were using specific type of gas that have this carbon monoxide that allowed people to commit suicide this way. But in 1970s they replaced it to use different type of gas that was not toxic. And the result of this is that the suicide rate in Great Britain dropped. So all of those cases that where people commit suicide by in this specific type of way, those numbers like were gone, and the remaining rate of suicides was without those people who previously commit suicide this way. So I cannot show you the chart, but it clearly shows that when we remove one way of doing suicide, then people don't select other way to commit suicide. I hope I explained this clearly. So this is one example of coupling. So in this case, suicide is coupled to the method of doing suicide, and if this method is removed, then people won't do it another way. And typically, we would assume that when a person wants to kill themselves, then they will find another way. But this is not what the data shows. There was also the story about Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, where a lot of people committed suicide this way. There was even a documentary showing people who committed suicide on this bridge. And there was a lot of discussion if there should be some kind of protection and some kind of nets that prevent, so people who will fall, they will fall into these nets, not so they won't kill themselves. But it was never implemented. And this is because people, when they saw it, they believe that if the person cannot commit suicide using this bridge, they will go somewhere else, they will find another method to commit suicide. But as I told previously, this is not the case. So installing something like that would really save many people from committing suicide. Um, mm, but yeah, this coupling is very difficult for people to understand. Another thing that was told was the law of crime concentration. So actually, in most of the cities, there is like an area of 2, 3, 5% when the more than 50% of crimes happens. So there are like very specific spots in most of the cities when most of the crimes happens in, and everywhere else there is no such high ratio of crimes. And this is very important because these are the places that should be really investigated by the police and taken care of. But it's sometimes very difficult to know if that place is dangerous or not. So it's a hotspot or not, because by the visual appearance of the spot, it's sometimes not possible to tell if the spot is dangerous or not. So it could be like totally confusing, because some place could look very decently maintained, look very very well maintained near church, for example, but it turned out that this is a dangerous place. And sometimes there were shitty places that looks very dangerous, but they were safe. So this is something that we cannot visually evaluate. This only can be gathered by statistics. And in those dangerous places, there are certain conditions that cause them to be dangerous places. And sometimes those things are difficult to understand, that why they lead to increase of the crime rate. So for example, I don't know, that being near to the school or a lot of other this kind of features that we cannot even understand why they lead uh, to these issues. So in this case, coupling is so certain places are coupled with crimes, and when those places are somehow altered, then they can remove the decrease the make those places more safe. So by taking care of this, a lot of can be revealed. And the story about this was one of the more interesting thing in this book. There was also another story about, I believe it was no, not Detroit, but one of the city in United States, Minneapolis. I don't remember. Let me check. But there was a lot of issues with shootings gun in certain places, and police were trying to find a way to decrease the crime rate there, and they were trying a lot of things. So for example, they were like going to all of those people in those places, and they informed me that when there is a shooting they should call the police, etc. It proved that it doesn't change anything, this method. They were, for example, increasing number of officers that were like driving around the district and check if this makes any difference, but it didn't make any difference. And there are many methods uh, how to fix this issue, but nothing worked. And what actually started to work was to checking cars during the night in those high crime concentration spots. So police officers, this is actually the weird case in US, that US police cannot enter home, for example, because of some amendments in the constitution. They can check a person when he is walking, but they can do investigation of the car under any premise. This is something weird, but the easiest way to investigate somebody in US is to just stopping their car and investigate it, because they were commit some small made some incident, like in case of this woman. And what I wanted to tell, so they find the way for them to decrease the crime rate was to stopping people when they are driving cars under some light, so any kind of presumption. I don't know. They were like moving too fast. They crossed the speed limit or wherever. I don't know. So something with lights is off. So they were stopping them and they were checking the car, looking for guns. And by doing this action, the crime rate went by half. By half. So this was something that started to really work in this city, and all other cities and all other police in other statements saw those results, and they start to replicate this. And as a result, this is one of the very common methods of checking people in US. So they stop people that are in cars and quite aggressively checked what is inside in order to find guns, etc. So they treat those strangers as they have something, there is something wrong with them, so they are crime. They check everything. So here we can go back to this Sandra Bland case, but before that, maybe you have something to tell, to comment about this coupling. So let me go. So how using the information based on this book, we can tell more about what happened here from the systematic point of view. Because what we saw here in this video in the beginning was that some police officer stopped her and checked her. So actually this the story behind this, what happened before that. So the police officer saw that Sandra Blind illegally crossed some stop line, and then he wanted to find an excuse to stop her. So he with a car get close to her and force her to change the lane, but she didn't turn off lights, that she goes to another lane, and this was the excuse for the officer to stop her. And this is why this woman was so irritated, because the officer stopped her for not changing the lights, and this was actually caused by the police officer itself. So because he forced her to change the lines. So she was irritated because of that. And there was also another like um, stories why she get irritated. For example, she was fined $8,000 previously because of other issues with on the road. So she was very upset because of that, that she will be fined once again. But the what why the police officer behaved the way he behaved. So one thing I told in the slow crime of concentration. So those police officers were trained to treat all of those strangers that they were stopped in a super extremely suspicious way. So typically when we talk with strangers, we have this default to truth attitude, but officers in police were trained to absolutely not believe strangers. So find anything that can be suspicious. And what was suspicious in behavior of Sandra Blunt was that she was irritated. She behaved in a way that the police officer treated that she's hiding something. She's trying. There is something wrong with her, that he's trying to hide something. So this is why he was very cautious. He also thought that she was doing something weird in her car, like I don't know, taking guns, something like that. While in reality it was about taking this cigarette. So first of all, he treat her. He tried to find any kind of suspicious element in her behavior, because this is the way how police is trained in US to behave. This is the first thing. Then the second thing is her behavior that was mismatched with the behavior of the person that would be innocent. So this is the illusion of transparency. And actually, people in police in US is trained that they should watch those transparency signals and evaluate based on that, which is wrong. So this is the way why the police behaved this way. And the third thing was about this coupling. So actually, this street you can see here is appeared that it's safe. So there are no crimes, no any kind of suspicious things like that. But uh, police in United States made a mistake. So they trained police to behave everywhere the same way. So behave in a quite aggressive way, treat all of the strangers as suspicious, so they are hiding, etc. While this attitude can work and give results only in places when there is this high crime concentration. So only in those type of places, this kind of behavior like this police officer makes sense because it can help reducing crime rate. But in all other places, the way how this guy behaved was completely wrong. Or completely wrong. Yes. So. People who watch this video in the beginning treat it as a person-to-person interaction, but after reading this book, you can see the systemic problems that lead to this kind of behavior of the police officer that lead to those issues. So like this is the way how it was described in this book.
You mentioned that he was fired, so there was some accusation, right? Like, do you remember what were like the reasons that he was because of which he was fired?
You ask why he arrested her, yes?
No. You mentioned that this policeman was fired in the end, right, from police.
Yes. He was fired because he break
Oh,
the
exactly.
etiquette, something like that. So he should be polite to her. He should de-escalate situation. So he didn't de-escalate situation. So she was irritated, and she should find a way to de-escalate this when he could. And instead, he was escalating this. Especially later when there was this situation in the beginning written that he started smoking, and this officer thought that she should stop smoking, put cigarette down, and actually she has the law to have this cigarette, but he told her that she could put it, and she thought she won't do it because she can't, and he got offended by that, and he wanted to show the authority, and the woman, the Sandra Blunt, was very resistant to this. She had a reason to not do it, but in a way she did this escalated the behavior, and he escalated, and this is how.
So the main problem was that he was offended.
From the personal perspective, yes, but as I said, also there is this all systemic problems that also caused this. So those officers were trained to behave in this way. So he was trained to be super suspicious what she's doing. He was trained to watch her body language, and she behaved in a way like she is hiding something, according to all of those teachings that he got when he was in the police. So he read this that she's hiding something. There is something suspicious about her, and yes, she was a little afraid that she can have a gun, something like that. So this is also why he behaved this way. So why he went this aggressive, because paradoxically he didn't trust. I mean, because when we saw this recording, we saw it like a normal people, that she was just irritated because the police stopped her, but the police officer was trained that, and he evaluated this, that she's hiding something, there is something off with her behavior, so she is dangerous. So
She might be, we don't know. This is very risky job, and she might be dangerous. She might have had the gun, and still, yeah, they're trained to be suspicious, but they also trained to act in line with the law. right? And like it seems that like he broke some of her rights in law.
Yes, yes, yes. Obviously, what we saw, he should have de-escalated the situation, but he didn't do it. So like there is this one layer, the personal layer, so this shallow layer, but there is this deeper layer that makes that a lot of police officers in United States are killing innocent people. So this is super frequent in United States because of the way how they were trained, and obviously because guns are so popular in United States, and racism,
And
etc., and all of those stuff.
yeah, and a lot of policemen are dying as well. That you're right, that the person who is irritated might take the gun and shoot. Of course, like he needs like to protect himself. But it seemed that the problem was in attitude more.
Like in both cases, yes. I mean, attitude, but also the systemic behavior. So, like to sum up this book, those three things: this default to truth, attitude that we all people have. So we believe strangers, and minority of people don't believe strangers, and they appear to be weird. And typically, this default to truth is good because people are good to us. They don't lie to us. They don't abuse us. But sometimes, yes, liars are present, and this attitude can lead to the problems. The second thing is this fallacy of transparency. So by seeing other people, we evaluate them, and by their body language, by their mimics, we evaluate their internal states. And sometimes, and quite often actually, people are mismatched. So what they show on the outer side is not what what actually happens inside of them. So this is the second thing, and the third thing is this coupling. So the behavior of the strangers really depends on the context. So where something happens, what they are doing, etc. And when we so a stranger can behave in one place in one way and in another place in a completely different way. So those three things are like the three biggest lessons of this book. One last lesson that he wrote, that we just cannot fully know what are strangers. I mean, we cannot evaluate and know everything about strangers. So there is some limit we can know them, and we need to be humble about this. So we cannot make some evaluations based on the appearance of other people. Anything you will remember from today? The most interesting thing?
It's not necessarily the most interesting thing, but one thing I could use, right? Because there was this case of the doctor who sexually assaulted gymnast, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm actually bringing my 7-year-old goddaughter to her gymnastics class,
Mhm.
and like that just got me thinking that she could become a victim.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's something I recall could be like tangentially applicable to my life.
Yes, probably this won't be the case because it's not super frequent, but I mean, there are
Mm,
a lot of cases like this sexual assault, obviously, this Epstein thing. This Epstein thing
mm,
is like one of the most famous in last years because of Trump, obviously.
yeah.
Yes, so this happens all the time, also in Poland, in
Mm,
all of the countries, this pedophilia, sexual assault. So this happens all the time, and this
mhm,
can happen especially when the famous person is involved, that
mm,
other people just don't believe that they can do this kind of crime because they default
mm,
to truth. So this
yeah.
is why it's very difficult uh, to to make people believe that somebody is doing something bad.
Yeah.
So in case of this gymnast massagist, he just had a record of in his computer. So he was just recording them when they were naked, and etc. So there was this clear, hardcore evidence that he did something wrong. But without this, it would be very difficult for them to prove that he is guilty. And obviously, many women thought what he was doing was totally valid. So even if he sexually assaulted them, they believed that he was doing this because he had to do it to teach, maybe to heal them.
Mhm.
Like he need to teach erotic zones to heal their back pains, for example.